Hey everybody, good evening. I'm so incredibly excited to be painting again today. I got a little bit of work done on what we did yesterday from the previous session, and I'm going to continue working on this. I've shifted around a little bit, and I'm going to be working on the hardwood floor. I've got about an hour that I'm going to paint today, so if you want to join me, I'd love for you guys to come in, add some comments, let me know what you think, how everything's moving along on this piece. I'm also really excited. I got a second canvas that I'm going to start working on that as well. So hopefully I can show you that maybe tomorrow or the next day. But today I'm going to continue working on this. I'll pan around a little bit. I am doing a little bit of a different camera setup today so that hopefully you guys can see a little bit better with the tripod. But you can see that I got a lot of work done on the pants over here a little bit earlier in the day today, and then also from our last session. But I'm bouncing around and I'm kind of working through some of the floorboards here, some of the flooring. And so I'm going to kind of work through that. So let me know if you have any questions. Give me some comments. Let me know what you guys think. I'm going to get mixing on some of my paints here. I'm shifting up some of my brushes so you guys can ask kind of what I'm using or what I'm working on. So just let me know what you guys think about that. I'm going to mix up some paints and I'm going to dive in. But hopefully you guys will join me soon and let me know what you guys are thinking of the painting so far. Okay, let's see what we've got. So this might be a little bit different today than it has been in the past, but I'm going to see how we can work through it. Right. So my brush strokes here for me are really important. I want to stay in line with the mark making, right? Because I want the angle of the mark making to really pull through and help me keep this perspective of these floorboards, especially because it's a little bit of a variation from the modeling and all the texture that I've done over here. So I'm really kind of changing up my mark making, changing up my brush usage, doing some of this, keeping in line with the perspective, doing some of this mark making to really give that flow. So you guys can see that it's really pushing forward. These are some pretty shiny hardwood elements, so I'm getting some of this. It's not like glass or anything, but I'll soften this up. I've placed it in because I'm getting some reflections and some value reflections off of this wood paneling in the molding, and then I'm going to place all this in, and then I'll come back in and kind of soften some of that up. So we'll see how this goes, but right now I'm kind of dropping in those first few values on this floor paneling and seeing how we get going on that. Hopefully you guys can see that okay, and I hope everybody's having a great Wednesday. I think it's a great Wednesday evening. Hopefully everybody's doing well and having a good night. We got a little bit of snow here, which was crazy. It felt really good in the academy to see some of that snow come in. Always makes me feel like we're in the holiday spirit, and so that's really fun. So again, I'm loosely just kind of putting in some mark making here, and then I'll tighten it up as I go. But I'm following, my brush strokes are following in a line with the perspective, and I think that adds a lot of the movement to the piece, and it keeps it going consistently. And again, if you remember from some of our previous sessions, I've changed over to a different kind of brush. Hey, Patricia, how are you? How's your night? Thanks for jumping in again. Hopefully you can see it. Let me show you what I did, Patricia. I want you to see some of the work. So that's where we've gotten to so far. So I didn't finish the pants. I wanted to bounce away from the pants, Patricia. I wanted to kind of get away from it. And I'm putting in some values now on the floor. I felt like I almost started working on the couch on the top left. Let me show you that. I almost started working on that mass over here on this top left-hand side, but I decided I wanted to ground the feet and ground the values of the feet and the legs better. So I'm working on this floor paneling, which is a little intimidating because it's got a certain sheen to it. It's got a certain glossiness to it. So I'm kind of working on some of that, getting some of that going. But as always, thanks for jumping in. I really appreciate it. I'm going to get this pointed back down here. Ah, you are so kind. I can't wait for you to see it in person. I think you're going to like it maybe even more in person, which I'm excited. You know how I feel about sharing artwork and letting people see it and getting to experience it a little bit. So, and thank you for always being so positive. I should say about my work, because you tend to be a little negative about your own, which you shouldn't be, but thank you for that wonderful positive feedback all the time. Like I said, I'm going to be painting for probably just about an hour or so today. Had a couple of makeup sessions today for some individuals, and preparing for a lot of oil painting explorations over the holiday, which is absolutely amazing. Those oil painting exploration sessions just make me very happy. I love it when people get to come in and paint maybe for the first time, or maybe they don't get to paint that often, and they leave with a beautiful landscape or a beautiful piece of artwork, especially going to the holidays. I think it's incredibly rewarding to complete a piece of art. Yeah, well, swing on by. We're typically open 10 to 8. Typically, some nights, since we're not running any 8-week classes or 4-week classes, some nights I will close up usually around 7, get home and tuck the girls in. But usually we're going to be open till that 8 o'clock range. So feel free to swing on by, as always. Always like to see what everybody's working on. Always like to see the artwork. It's fantastic. And again, if you're watching and you're here locally and you're part of the Visual Arts Academy and Studio community, we do have our life drawing sessions tomorrow, our clothed figure drawing sessions tomorrow night from 6 to 8 p.m. It's drop in. It's $20. Come in, and that helps cover the model cost. We do have some material packets if you guys need some materials. Typically, we have people working in charcoal. You can work in graphite as well. We move through very quick gestural poses, about 10 to 15 60-second poses, and then we move into 3-minute poses, then 15-minute poses, and we finish off with a very nice long hour pose. So that way you can really focus on some of that detail and have a longer sitting or reclining pose. So it's a lot of fun. Drawing from life and drawing the figure, I think, is incredibly beneficial for every artist at every stage. I think it's just one of the most beneficial things that you can do. So we have drop-in life drawing clothed model sessions on Thursday nights, 6 to 8. I would love to see you guys come by. So really working on these floorboards. I hope the goal is, as I move this, as I work these pieces, because right now they seem so very different, but if you've ever looked at flooring, if you paid attention to hardwood flooring, each one of those panels has a unique texture to it and unique coloring. And so I really want to kind of capture that. This kind of goes back to what the statement was, or the question was yesterday. Am I staying so true to the reference, or am I having some freedom with it? And I'm definitely having some freedom with it on this flooring, because I don't want it to be the focal point. It could very easily overwhelm the rest of the piece, right? It could be so dramatic and so strong that it could pull away from my main focal point. So I'll drop all this in, I'll put in these elements, but then I'll see, how does it stack up? Is it taking too much interest away from my area of focus? Is it taking back from the central point, which again, she tends to be the central focus here with that intensity and that personality. And so I really want to hone in on that. But I thought I would go live today and show you guys some of the work I'm doing on the rest of this piece here and how I'm kind of working that in. Thanks for stopping by. We've added a number of subscribers and viewers, so I'm really appreciative of everybody jumping in and joining. Thank you all so much. Really appreciate everybody. We're gearing up for our next round of 8-week sessions here at the Academy. They start in January, and we're so excited. We've got a lot of different course offerings going on, a lot of different elements taking place. Really, really excited. I went a little heavy there. I'm going to pull some of that off. I don't like how quite heavy that went. Very quickly. A little dark. Should have been a little bit more conscious about the value choice that stuck there. That's okay. I can rework it. I can work through it. That's the beauty of this, is it doesn't always have to be perfect right out of the gate, but don't give up on it. Keep working it. Keep working it. And sometimes it's okay. You got to throw that one away. Give it another chance. Another day. Fight another day, right? Paint another day. Draw another day. Just don't quit. Just keep going. And sometimes you might surprise yourself. You might go, oh, you know what? All right, that didn't turn out too bad. How about that? And other times you go, nope, that definitely wasn't right. Definitely didn't like that. Ah, thank you. Thanks for jumping in and joining and taking a look. I'll pan it around. I don't think you've been able to see it. Valerie, let me show you around. Hang on, I'm dropping in some of these values here, getting that going. Let me show you. That way you can maybe see it a little bit. We're going to get a bad angle, but there's the feet and the pants. And then I'll see if it goes all the way up. There's the facial portrait of it. But thanks for dropping in. We're working on some of the flooring here, getting some shine to it. My amazing, wonderful mother-in-law, thank you so much for dropping in and jumping in, taking a look. Hopefully it captures core pretty well. I've got one of Everly that I'm excited to do, and I think these will be a great little series. I know it's definitely one I'm really passionate about and excited about, so we'll see how it goes. I'm really excited that we get to share these live sessions with everybody. It's something that we're practicing and testing out, especially since we don't have any of our 8-week sessions. Our master draftsman instructor, Chad Nuss, is going to be going live tomorrow. So make sure you guys tune in for that. It'll be on this channel. It'll be on the Visual Arts Academy and Studio channel. You'll be able to see it on all of our outlets, our social medias. But I'm really excited to see what he gets into. He's working on 3 or 4 different pieces. So I don't know which one he's going to share with you guys. He may share his large charcoal drawing. He may share his portrait work. I don't actually know what he's going to be doing. So I'm excited to tune in as well. Excited to see what he puts out there and shares with you guys and the wisdom he shares. He's a brilliant artist. We are so fortunate to have him as an instructor here. So much fun to be able to work with him and be motivated as well. Again, our co-founder, Thomas, has a saying, and I think it should be coined, artists don't have to work. They can choose to, but they don't have to work in a vacuum. And I think that's very true for me. I think it's healthy for me to get out and to be surrounded by other artists and work with other artists, whether they're students and enrollees or other professional individuals. It helps me to be surrounded by them and motivated by them. And I think that's true for a lot of artists. So I think it's very, very good. Very excited. So one thing I noticed for sure is I want to drop some of these values here and then create a variance between these panels. So right now I'm just going to drop this medium tone value in. Got a little bit of my edge there. Again, I'm using my brush work, my brush marks, my brush strokes to stay in line with that perspective angles. So it keeps that flow. It keeps that moving right along with it. I'm going to come back in, and actually I need my maul stick now. Pardon, give me 1 second, everybody. I apologize. I'm going to grab my maul real quick and balance my hand. That way I don't get my hand all over the paint, and I steady myself with this line because this is going to be a pretty tricky line to achieve here. So I'm going to use the maul and balance my hand and just drag it. Just a little bit of hint of white here, and then go back in and clean that up. Again, I just work on things. I just keep working them. I want that little bit of variation here. Just that little bit of lip from that piece of the wood flooring should be elevated a little bit. So I'm just working through that. Nice and easy. I'm going to come in here like this. Nice and careful. Didn't want to miss a chance to come live again, especially because I think it's great fun to see the updates and where things are at. Again, I'm probably going to have about a 45-minute, 50-minute painting session, get some work done on this flooring, get some of these values dropped in, and see how we do with it. So little hints of those cracks in between that wood paneling there. Just little bitty things. I hope that a lot of you get a chance to come by the Academy and the studio and see these pants in person. I'm quite pleased with them, actually. The texture has really turned out pretty well. Really excited about it. They turned out to be pretty powerful. Not quite done with it yet. And again, this is still just the underpainting. As we learned yesterday, we learned the correct pronunciation of the word Grisaille. So we are working on the Grisaille. I should have probably have known that for many years, but we always kind of referenced it more as just an underpainting or a grayscale painting. But for those of you who are just joining, haven't seen any of our other sessions, this is a Grisaille oil painting on 30 by 40 canvas, prime canvas, with a yellow ochre wash. It's not a full imprimatura. It's not a full imprimatura that's going down. It is just a yellow ochre wash, so that way I didn't have to start on a white base. That way I had a toned base on my canvas. And I personally typically use the yellow ochre. I do use raw sienna sometimes, but I like the yellow ochre because it kind of adds that little bit of a glow, and I like how it illuminates the piece. And especially as I continue to add on the layers, it really balances and makes things pop. So working on that now. Hopefully you guys let me know what you think. Ask questions. Let me know what you think of the piece. How's it looking? You guys happy with how it's turning out so far? I know some of you have followed this journey pretty much the whole time, so I'm glad to get your feedback and to know what you guys think. It's always interesting to see what everybody thinks of the piece. And feel free to ask questions as we continue to work. And I'm going to get some of these dropped in here. And then push some of these values around. Again, I'm staying in line, not perfectly, but I'm staying in line with the flow of the grain of the wood. And so I'm implying some of that just simply by my brush strokes, just by following that brush stroke of that perspective line. That's going to help me with those that grain angle. And so I'm really kind of following that, keeping that there. That way it has that kind of natural flow with it. If I start going sideways, it's not going to replicate the natural wood grain that's in that flooring. And so I'm using my brush stroke as a way to accent some of that. And I mean, it's not technically contour lines because again, they're just perspective lines, but it's allowing me to hone in and create that angling and also at the same time the texture of the wood. So it serves a dual purpose for sure. And I apologize if my hat or hand's in the way a little bit, but I've got to get in here and clean this line up a little bit. Just like that. Sometimes it's just so fun to see these values come together on the canvas. It's just so much fun. And artwork should be fun. It's not always fun. I talk about this a lot. Sometimes it's grueling, sometimes it's painful, but for the most part, I think it should be fun. Putting in some of these nice little notes here. This probably isn't the most interesting section of the piece, but I think it's healthy and important to show a lot of the different works that are coming through, a lot of the different sections, because obviously the whole painting, I don't want to just hyper focus on one section. I want to bounce around, find that unity of the piece. And by bouncing around even to some of the areas I don't necessarily want to work on right away, it definitely helps pull the piece together, I think, and really makes it kind of pop. And that keeps the unified values consistently. I talk a lot about being able to compare values, comparing the value from this part of the piece all the way to the top part of the piece. That way you have that consistency. Again, you could probably work with 7 to 9 different values in your tones, tints, and shades, like a 7 grayscale, 7 value grayscale. But the goal is to make sure that it's consistent across the whole piece, so that when I go and put my chroma down, when I go and put my color down, I know exactly what kind of tints and shades I want to have with it. And I think that makes your color choices significantly stronger and significantly easier to manage. And it's really important and very valuable. And so that's the whole point of this Grisaille, or Grisaille. I did it. Oh, if Chad were on, he'd laugh at me because he's the one that taught me the proper pronunciation of that. So Grisaille, I will get it. It will become part of my regular vernacular and vocabulary, and I will get that correct. I'm super excited. We have a French-speaking student, native French-speaking student that's joining our classes in January. I'm going to pick their brain about all these terms. It's going to be so much fun. Just working in these values, really working them in here. I'm going to see how much pigment we can throw on the canvas in the next 35, 40 minutes. Really kind of get in there. Like spreading that paint around. Soften this up here. Awesome. Again, if you're in the Louisville area, we've got our drop-in clothed model sessions tomorrow night. Would love to see you guys here, drawing with us, getting some good mental exercise in, doing some drawing of a reference model. Again, as you may have heard at the top of this video, I think it's incredibly healthy to constantly practice the craft. And part of that craft is drawing from life and drawing from the human form. I think it's incredibly beneficial to be able to do that and to practice that on a regular basis. Now let's see, I'm going to bounce over. Part of the reason I wanted to do this grounding here is because I wanted to have my correct value next to this pant leg, because this pant leg is going to have to pop when I finish it. And so I really wanted to make sure I have my proper value right here on this floor section. That way I can see how that pant leg is going to shine. Just really kind of work through that. Yeah, that's nice. All right, we're getting there. Because then my hope is to be able to come back in and finish up these pants, finish up this pant leg as we go through. I'm going to darken this up a little bit because I'm going to want some heavier contrast. So you're going to see that I'm going to darken that up a little bit. A little bit of paper towel fluff on my brush there. That's okay. Just wipe that off. Let that go. So this is a wet on wet mix. So I've got my tints and shades over here. I've got my values over here on my palette. But I noticed I wanted to go a little bit heavier on the darker value. And so I'm just doing a little bit of a wet on wet mix here, letting that get a little bit darker, a little bit heavier saturated. And if you're just joining, this is actually not black. I'm not using black. I'm using raw umber, and I'm using titanium white, a variety of different brushes. I was working with a round for a while, and then I've shifted over to kind of a hybrid wedge and putting in these values. Again, I'm staying in line with my perspective lines, and that's going to accent some of these wood floor panels have a pretty heavy grain to them. Not all of them. Some of them are a little bit softer, but by using my brush strokes in this fashion, it gives that hint of the grain, and it helps keep everything in perspective. So I'm pushing all of that down, pushing it all around, kind of keeping it consistent with that. We're going to see how much paint we can get down here in a short amount of time. Thank you guys for checking in. Thank all of you guys for joining, liking, subscribing, and sharing. Again, this is just a quick, short paint session. Just adding in some nice detail work here. And what I don't want to forget is I have some cast shadows on this flooring here. And I don't want to forget them. So I'm going to make some notes, right? I'm going to make some notes as to what I've got and make sure that I don't forget where my shadows are coming from. Where am I getting, right? Because I'm getting some here, getting that there. So I don't want to forget that. Now that I've got my tones down, now I'm going to come back in. I'm going to finish this up, and then I'm going to work on those cast shadow sections and bleed that into that, so that way I can keep that consistent with what I'm trying to achieve, which hopefully I'm achieving fairly well. Let me know what you guys think. Give me a comment. Let me know how it's looking. I'll pan out here in just 1 second. Let me finish kind of filling this in here. Pan out and let you guys see the pants. If you joined us the other day, you'll see that we got quite a bit of work done on those pants. They're kind of that hybrid blue jean look and feel, which I think is an interesting material. It's going to be a tough one to paint. Lots of different values, lots of different colors. Really working that in here. That's beautiful. Very happy with how this is coming along so far. Now I'm going to come back in and I'm going to drop in some of these darker values right where my cast shadows are. And I'm going to layer this on top. And then I'm going to soften it up. Really let it softly hit just like it's overlapping, just like it's overlaying, and it's just kind of sitting there. And then you're going to see me soften those edges up so that they kind of softly kind of flutter out, flutter a little bit away. See that there? I'm going to come back up here, pull some of that paint down and out. Beautiful stuff. So much fun when you get it right. And it's fun when you don't, because a challenge is always good too. I like a good challenge when you're working on your art. Pushes you, makes you a better artist. You learn different techniques, learn different stuff. So right here, if you see that, I just soften that edge up. Just because it's a cast shadow doesn't always mean it has to have such a hard edge. But boy, we're going to see this come to life as we work through this whole cast shadow here. We're going to see that really kind of come to life, really peek out as we get across that. You guys can see how that's starting to work there. Hopefully you guys can see how that's being cast down. I'm going to do the same thing on the other leg that we've got going on here. I've created the board the way that I want it. Now I'm going to put this in on top. Let this sit here. And that's part of the reason, if you've listened to some of the other live sessions, part of the reason I make such detailed notes with my drawings. I make those notes there so that I know exactly what I'm trying to achieve. It reminds me, hey, this is elevated out here. This is a cast shadow here. Really helps me to understand what I'm trying to achieve with the piece as a whole. Went a little heavy there. It's all right. I'm going to pull some of that off. Really kind of work some of that in. Soften that up. Come in and get some of these nice little details. Again, tomorrow night, you're going to get a chance to see Chad Nuss, our other master instructor. He's going to hopefully be showing us some really cool techniques. I don't know what he's going to be working on exactly, but I trust that it's going to be something that you're going to want to watch, something that you're going to want to take a look at and see, because I enjoy seeing his work. I tell you what, it is a joy for me to get to watch him work and to get to watch his pieces come to life. It's amazing when you find other artists that just resonate and you just learn from them. And that's what the Visual Arts Academy and Studio is all about. So you can see I'm going to soften this guy up. Just really soften that up. And then as we come in, hopefully I can continue that all the way across this other panel, this other floor panel. And we're going to get that nice soft texture of that cast shadow. And then it creeps up the wall there. Just working through this. I think it's really starting to come to life. You know, a lot of times when we do portrait work, we don't always think about the environment that the person is being placed in, and I think that adds to the whole situation, the whole creative side of that piece. And so I'm really honing in on some of these elements. Hopefully you guys can start to see some of this kind of coming together. I know this section looks a little bit confusing. Hopefully here in the next 15, 20 minutes, you're going to see this kind of come together, see kind of where I'm going with that. But you can see that the panels are starting to kind of come to life on this flooring here. I'm going to keep working that through, see what I can achieve with it. Maybe show you guys kind of what I'm thinking here. But please ask questions. Let me know what you guys think. The comments always kind of motivate me and encourage me that I'm doing something right, or maybe I need to change it up. If it's not looking the way that we think it should be looking, maybe I need to fix it. Maybe I need to look at it from a different angle. Try some different things. This little bitty edge here is going to poke out. I'm going to change my brush up just a little bit. Really drop in some contrasted elements here. Thank you guys for jumping in and joining. Let me know you're here. Let me know you're watching. It's great to know that people are engaging, and hopefully you're painting with me or drawing with me or sketching or something. You've got something going on. Doing some kind of nice little artwork here, I hope. So I've got some beautiful values mixed up, which I'm just going to keep working with. And I'm going to pull in some of these values here because I really want to make sure I get the right shades, because this is going to drop a little bit darker here. It's going to drop nice and dark. As this separates this next panel. Just placing this here. Again, I'm trying to stay somewhat loose while maintaining all the notes. I personally, I guess I tend to be a little bit tighter at this stage, because I like being able to know that when I come back in with my color or my chroma, I feel pretty confident that the values are accurate. The values are where I want them to be. And that helps me tremendously when I go into my colors. Just working through this here. Nice and quick. Trying to stay loose. I don't want to get too tight. If I get too tight, I feel like I don't create the energy with it. I'm just working through that. Really working through this different elements of this piece here. And I want to take a look at my reference again. I haven't glanced at it. I haven't, if you remember the other day, I talked about how I try to pull information and maintain that information kind of like in a register. So I'll glance at it, and I don't want to do it exactly verbatim, if you will, but I want to have enough notes and ideas that I can still maintain that sense of realism and feel in the piece without losing my energy, without losing my own independent take on it, my interpretation, if you will. And so I like being able to reference it, and I kind of catalog it, make mental notes and catalog, and then make notes on the canvas. And those notes on the canvas allow me to continue that, right? They allow me to work through those things. So like if I know I want some big, heavy, line work here in this floor panel, I can make some notes like this and then come back in and tweak them as I go and as I adjust. But what I really want to do is figure out this section here, because it does kind of a weird thing. It darkens up, but then it also kind of lightens up, and it behaves in a unique way because those floor panels are different values. So I'm just working through those. Still maintaining, or still trying to maintain and achieve that sense of the cast shadow from the legs, because my light source is going this way. So I've got my light source shining from left to right, so it's casting this, and this is going to be a softer cast shadow that goes up that wall. And so as I fill these in, hopefully you'll get a sense of it as we continue to work on it. Everybody will get a chance to hopefully see this come to life and fill in on these floor panels, these floor wood elements. But again, let me know what you think. Let me know how it's looking. Let me know what you think of those pant legs as they kind of come together. I think some people were a little shocked yesterday at how the texture was coming about, how painterly and loose it was. But I think it worked out pretty well. I think people were pleasantly surprised with the look and feel of it. The other thing I have to remind myself is that as all of this recedes back in space, the detail is going to dissipate, right? Things become less detailed as they move back in space. And so I have to remember as I work on this that those elements in the background, those elements on the shelves, they're not going to have as much detail. And I specifically want the figure to be the most detailed point because it's my focal point. So I don't want to do too much on this flooring because I think it could be a pretty heavy distraction. Now, granted, I say that, but I'll have to step away from the piece, step back from it, see how it's looking, see how it's coming together, see if I'm losing my main areas of focus, or do I need to reevaluate what needs to be my focus? Do I need to shift and change and say, okay, nope, you know what? This actually is very interesting. This is really intriguing. I like how this is coming together, and maybe I'll make that a focal point. And again, if you're a new subscriber, newly watching, we are the Visual Arts Academy and Studio. We specialize in the visual arts, the visual fine arts, and we do courses, classes, exhibitions, gallery shows. We do all that kind of work. And we are sharing some of our own personal work here on the live feed, hopefully bringing in some other guest artists, some guest lecturers at some point, if you will. And hopefully get our co-founder in here also. And tomorrow, our master draftsman instructor, Chad Nuss, is going to be doing a live session and hopefully sharing some wisdom with you guys and sharing some knowledge. And hopefully having a great time while you guys are doing it. Have some fun. Ask him some good questions. I've been so fortunate that, you know, in this last week, we've really only been doing this for a week. This last week, you guys have provided such phenomenal questions and comments. I hope you guys share those with Chad as well. I hope that's something that he's able to experience. So be prepared. Give him some good ones. Give him some good feedback. Ask him some good questions. Probably while he's doing that, I'm going to be working on an oil painting exploration session. And so I don't know if I'll be able to chime in and listen or comment or anything. I'll watch the video after it's all said and done, but I may miss it tomorrow. So kind of sad about that, but it'll be all right. I'll get to watch it afterwards, and hopefully you guys will, you know, give Chad a lot of good support, just as much as you guys, if not more than what you guys have given me. And we'll see how that session goes. So this flooring is challenging, and part of the reason that this flooring is challenging to me is because right now in this section, we have multiple panels, right? Multiple floorboards, and each floorboard has its own unique texture. Some are very heavy in the wood grain. Some are a little bit softer. They're more consistent in their value and their color. But then also on top of that, to kind of make this even a little bit more challenging, at least to me, is the fact that we have these cast shadows. And so some of these cast shadows interact very differently on these wood panels. So as it's working through there, I need to figure out, okay, exactly how do I want that to behave? How do I want those panels to interact? And, you know, and how do those values coexist? And so I'm kind of working through some of that to see how we can get with it. And I don't want to lose too much of it, but at the same time, I just want it to be subtle. I just want somebody to be able to go, oh yeah, I see what's happening. I want that subtlety. There we go. Look at that. Look at that. I hope you guys are watching and enjoying. To me, it's so therapeutic to be able to get to share this with you guys, to be able to paint with you all. Such a joy. And it just makes me happy. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I think it's starting to get there. What do you guys think? I think it's starting to get there. I think this is a little harsh. I want to soften this up a little bit. Get some of that out of that. And I may have to come back in and work some of these guys a little bit heavier. But that's okay. I've got my first base down on it. Feeling pretty good. Staying with some heavy mark making here. Now, what's really cool is this panel here has some pretty heavy, it's got some pretty heavy grain to it. And so I'm excited to get to mess around with some of that grain. And I think it'll be a little bit fun to create these variations in here. And we'll see if I can achieve it. I was able to do a lot of wood grain with my characters called the Eppies. I did a lot of graphite drawings of these Epi characters, and they were just so much fun. And I did a lot of woodwork, a lot of wood drawing. So I feel pretty confident in my ability to create this wood grain texture. Now, that being said, I've never achieved a ton of it with oils. So there is a little bit of a variation with the oil technique. But I feel pretty confident that hopefully we can get something that's beneficial for the painting. So I'm working through some of these floor panels, really adding in some of this wood grain, creating this grounding element for my main figure here, hopefully getting something good in here. something that works. It's all about finding what works. Be better than your reference. You're going to hear me say that all the time. Be better than your reference. Find what works for your piece. You may have to modify and change things, right? If you've picked a strong composition, if you've done your work and you've found a really good composition, that's half the battle, right? That's absolutely half the battle. But then you've got to adjust because your painting is going to be a little bit different than what your original concept or your original layout might have been. And so you've got to be flexible. You've got to be better than your reference. You've got to be able to change some things up, try some different things, and know that it may modify as you work through it. It may modify, and that's okay. A lot of times you'll find happy things that happen. That's kind of not a great, sometimes happy things, thank you, Bob Ross, happy things will happen without you intending them to. That's what I'm trying to say. And when that happens, you get the choice. You are the artist. You're the creator of this piece. You get to decide, do I want to leave that in there? Do I like how it worked? Or do I want to rework it? Do I want to go back? And do I want to keep working on it and fixing it and modifying it? That's your choice. And sometimes happy things happen. You go, man, that's better than I even planned it. I'm going to leave it in that way. And I think a lot of times we as artists, we overthink it. We don't trust our instincts. And a lot of times our instincts kick in and we're able to achieve something instinctually rather than being planned. And I think that's a wonderful thing. I think, when you can trust yourself and stay focused on it and let it happen, I think that's great. I think it's absolutely great. So again, just dropping in some of this. Now this is a base layer of this texture. So this is going to change and modify as I keep working on it. And I'm going to keep kind of going into it a little bit more. This little front panel here, some of these other panels don't have as much of that grainy quality to them. You can see that this one's a lot smoother over here. This one has a little bit. But the one I'm working on now definitely has the most grain to it. And I'm just letting that kind of naturally breathe, just letting it kind of work. Again, using my reference as a guide, not as a crutch. Again, that doesn't mean that everybody does that. That's not what I'm saying. But I don't want to be stuck to it. I don't want to be stuck to that and just go, I have to do it exactly that way. I like to use it as a guide, and I get to pick and choose how I want that to interact with my painting or influence my painting. But ultimately, I want to be that designer. Starting to come together, I think. We're getting there, guys. Let me know what you think in the comments. Like, share, follow us. Come paint with us on a regular basis. We're going to be getting to do hopefully a lot more of this. Sharing our talents and skills and hopefully a little bit of wisdom with you all. I'm just going to work this in. Now this gets to be a little bit tricky here because I've got these feet in this cast shadow. And so I really want to work this outward. And I want to work it outward and soften. So I'm pulling the brush away as I work outward. And that's going to softly blend up or blend out, if you will, with that brush. And that's going to give me that look. Oh, look at that. So we're getting there. We are absolutely getting there. Working on that texture. Now I've got to remember that I've got that cast shadow over there. I've got my notes over there. Hey, Seth, don't forget about that cast shadow. Don't forget about that. It's going to run along those wood panels. Be mindful. Keep it organic, but keep it in line with my perspective, right? I really don't want to lose those perspective lines because it just really adds to the elements of those floor panels. If I start using my brush left and right and I leave those brush strokes there, it's going to pull you out of the realism of it. It's going to make you not think that those are receding back in space along the vanishing point or the horizon. Oh my gosh, the perspective, if I could speak sometimes. But here's where we're there. So you can see those little subtle cast shadows there. So now I'm going to work that in, soften that up, and continue that consistently over those. And again, each of these panels are a little bit different value, so the cast shadow value is going to be different. Hopefully that makes sense to you guys. Just because the cast shadow is super dark on this panel, That's because this panel is a darker panel. As I shift over to the lighter panel, the cast shadow also lightens up. So you got to be mindful of that. The cast shadow isn't always the same value depending on what it's being cast on. And so your values can shift depending on that. And sometimes it's very, very subtle, but those subtleties make all the difference, right? And I'm going to try to stay a little bit looser here, let that kind of breathe, because I'm going to come back on top of this here in a little while and add some additional elements. But look at that. Hopefully you're seeing that wood grain. Hopefully you're seeing that wood grain and you like it. I'm curious to see what you guys think, but it's starting to come together. I'll pan out, show you guys a little bit more so you can kind of see. So there's the pants. We've got our facial element going on up there, our portrait, and then this is a super light reflected because this wall panel here is going to be white. So this, you guys may be looking at this going, man, Seth, that's a really, really light panel. But all of these elements over here are white molding and a very light gray wall. And so you're getting some of that reflected light on this floorboard here, and we're going to even add some onto these elements too to get some of that reflected white that's bouncing over. But for the most part, I want to be conscious of these values as I work through them, which I'm trying to do pretty consistently, is staying focused on those values, not getting overwhelmed by it. And now here's the trick again. I've got this other cast shadow, and I've got to work this in. Got to work this guy in. And I'm going to work it kind of in and then push it out, just like this here. Gently kind of massage that pigment out. I am going to double check my reference again, just make sure I'm kind of staying where I want to be value-wise. Make sure I've got my values. I've got some pre-made, pre-mixed. So I did a little bit of value study earlier. And for my grisaille, which, again, the French term here for just gray painting, really dropping these in. It's going to help me tremendously when I come in with my next layer, my glazes for the actual chroma, the actual color. And so you can see that this is starting to hopefully read pretty well here. Starting to get some good information down. Starting to come together. Kind of softens up a little bit here. Went with a little bit lighter shade here. Find that edge. And if you could see close enough, if you could come and see this in person, you can see that some of this yellow ochre is pulling through, right? And it's adding an energy and a feel to this as a whole piece. So that's why I like using that underpainting or that underwash, if you will. I like seeing it kind of come together, and it unifies the whole piece really. And it will show through even after those final colors are added. It will stay consistent, and it's very powerful. Some of the old masters used to use a vermilion green. There's some that would use different values and shades of browns. You can pick pretty much any. I've seen people do raw sienna, burnt sienna. I've seen a lot of people do a lot of different things with it, and it's really interesting to see how that helps and works with that piece. On a completely unrelated note, if you're a Star Wars fan and you have not watched Skeleton Crew, I encourage you to go watch Skeleton Crew. It's awesome. It's a lot of fun. When they said it's Goonies meets Star Wars, I didn't know how I'd feel about it, but it's pretty much Goonies meets Star Wars, which is an okay mix by me, because Goonies never say die. I'm excited to share with my daughters. I think it's a fun one. So now we're getting in here. Now, see, I've got a little bit of this here, and I really don't want to lose that pant leg as we kind of come into it. So I've got to make sure I don't lose that. But this definitely does get darker back here, definitely does recede. And this is kind of tricky in this spot with this cast shadow because it is dark back here, but that cast shadow is still going to be a little bit darker. So I may have to come in and add some accents on that. Look at that come together. Oh, gosh. To me, sometimes when you feel it and you're just moving and cruising and things are happening well for you, sometimes it just can feel like you're on autopilot. It just feels like you're just kind of, the paint's going exactly where you want it to go. You're picking all the right values, and it feels fun. It's always fun. Sometimes it's just challenging, but man, when you get those values right, like this little subtle difference here, I really, really enjoy that slightly subtle difference that I'm getting. But I am going to grab a little bit of a different brush here. I'm going to go get it. If you'll bear with me one second, I'm going to grab this other brush, and I'm going to soften some of these elements up. I really want to make sure I get it to where it's softer. So I'm going to take a mop, a nice little mop, and just very gently just soften some of these edges up. And I'm just very lightly touching, just barely even touching the canvas. You can kind of hear it if you are one of those ASMR people, I think, if that's what it is. You can slightly just hear it kind of barely touching that canvas. Just softening some of that up. So satisfying. It's just so satisfying to see. Hopefully you guys can hear that. And boy, look at that. Now we're starting to see her sit on some floor. I think that's turning out pretty good. Oh, hey, Patricia, you're back on. I think I got quite a bit of work done. I think we're getting some flooring done. That was the mop. So that was the giant mop that we've always talked about. The difference is I'm using this mop with the oils. And so I very gently am brushing it across. It's that same kind of mop that we use in that watercolor, Patricia. But with the oils, I'm just gently softening it up. And that's really helping with those cast shadows that are taking place here. It's really letting those values, drop the stick there. It's really letting that value sit and soften. And so it's not popping as much. It's letting it sit into it. And I feel pretty good about it. I think it's looking pretty good. I think it's turning out to be all right. Yeah, I think that is a great question. About not losing interest. Yeah, the mop. Yes, the mop. The nice big mop. And so this is actually a number 16 size mop. And I use it kind of as like, if you think of like doing makeup, right? Doing like blush. If you ever put blush like on your cheeks or whatever, think of it like that softness, that just maybe 2% soft little touch, just soft little touch, just to barely touch that oil to soften the brushwork. So that way you get that nice, I don't want to do too much of it because I don't want to lose the detail, but I want to get enough in there so that it softens it and moves it across. And then I love your comment about, losing interest with the lack of color. For me, it's not, I've done this enough to not lose interest in it because I know the value of it. I know how important it is to me, and you and I have talked about like the pre-planning in watercolors and the pre-planning in a lot of the artwork. And for me, this is just part of the planning stage. It's part of the execution. I'm finishing the painting in values only. So that way I come back to it with color, and I've already painted it once. That second layer of color should go very, very fast, Patricia. I should say it should go very fast, but it should not take me as long having done the Grisaille, because now the Grisaille is allowing me to know what value I need to add in. And so you've already kind of completed the painting once, and I think your brain has memory as well as your muscle memory. You know what brush strokes to use. You figured out what brush to use on the painting. You figured out where to go next with it. And so that really helps tremendously, because now you've completed the painting in multiple stages, multiple sessions, and ultimately I think it ends up being better because of it. And so I don't lose interest because I know the value of it. I understand the value of it. Well, not everybody has to do this layer. This isn't always a layer that everybody does. Again, if you go alla prima, if you just do all in one pass, if you do the alla prima style, you're not going to do an imprimatura. You could do an imprimatura with an alla prima. You could do that like that quick wash, but you're probably not going to do a Grisaille, because the Grisaille is not in one session. The alla prima is to be able to be done in one session. So if you take a 2-hour oil painting exploration with us, we don't do a Grisaille. We don't come in and do a Grisaille because we only have 2 hours to try to complete an entire work of art. So we're not doing this process. But if I have the time to take if I can take my time and I can do this, I personally enjoy it, and I see and I know the value of it, and I don't get discouraged. I don't lose interest because I know that it's going to pay off. I know that the payoff for this is going to be all the reward I need to persevere through it. There have been paintings where I'm like, oh man, come on, this is dragging, or it feels like it's dragging. But then you get to a point and you're like, whoa, wow, okay, now the energy's back, now the motivation's back, because it's got you kind of moving forward, and you see where it goes. I'll get the camera off here in just 1 second. Let me finish this little spot up on this wood floor piece, because I really want to get this accurate, and I'll show you the whole painting. You should try oil. I think you would like oil. I do think you would like oil. And I think everything that you've learned in your watercolor work and your amazing brush work will assist you with oils. It's all interconnected, right? And I think that you would absolutely enjoy it. I think you could enjoy acrylics too, but let's take a look. I'm going to pan out. I'm going to show you guys what it looks like. Give you a chance to take a look at it here. Take this camera. So here's where we're sitting. So let me get this guy going. So hopefully you guys can see that all right. I'll back up even more. So there's the whole piece from a distance. All the pieces are starting to come together. And what I'm really focused on, what I'm really honing in on and focusing on, is making sure that all the different textures work in harmony, that all the different textures don't compete with each other, that they work in harmony. Because I have all this very heavy textured denim here on the pants. I've got the very chiaroscuro, very sculptured feet and face. And then I'm going to have this unbelievably ribbed sweater that's going to be an unbelievable challenge. And so, you know, I'm trying to, as I work and progress through this, make sure I don't lose the sense that all of this has to work in unison. It has to work together as we go through it. So I think it's, you know, that's one of the challenges, is it's easy to just kind of go in and throw paint around and put paint on the canvas. But are you working in a harmonious fashion so that when the piece comes together and it's all said and done, is it achieving the message that you want? And so I don't want to overwhelm the floor, because I want her to be the focus, but I also want her to be grounded. I want her to feel real in this space. I want her to feel like she lives in this space and dominates based on her persona and the picture of her face and the expression. I want her to dominate this space. And I think that's what I'm trying to achieve. Patricia, you are so kind. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you. It's a gift to have you watch. It's a gift to have you in class. It's honestly, having the Academy is a gift in itself. And we're so grateful to be able to be here. We're so grateful to be part of the Louisville community, the Middletown community. We're so grateful to be able to share our passions and our love with everybody. I can't thank you enough for jumping in and joining. Again, I'm getting to do quite a few of these this week and next week because we're not running any classes. We do have our life drawing session tomorrow night. Our other instructor, Chad Nuss, is going to go live tomorrow. Can't wait for you guys to get to see what he does. He's a brilliant artist and a brilliant instructor. And so I'm really excited for him to get to share his passion with you guys live as well. Again, I've been blown away by the amount of people that have reached out and said, hey, we're not local, we're not here, we're not able to take courses with you guys physically. Can you share something with us so that we can be part of the Voss community? And that's really what's motivated us to do this. You know, I haven't done a lot of live sessions in the past as an artist. And honestly, it's a little intimidating to even be doing it and trying it. But with people reaching out and wanting to be engaged with us, I knew it was something we had to try and had to do. So I'm very grateful for all the feedback, the encouragement. We've got people all over the place that have been reaching out and saying, hey, thank you for sharing. Thank you for doing this. And I'm glad we are. And I think that's a really good thing, a healthy thing for our academy, because not everybody can take the physical classes. Not everybody can be here. But if you are here locally, I encourage you, stop by the studio, come by and see us. Join up for one of our drop-in life drawing sessions tomorrow night, from 6 to 8 on Thursdays. Come join us. Be a part of the community. You don't have to work. I mentioned this earlier in the live session. You don't have to work in a vacuum, as our co-founder Thomas says. You don't have to be a vacuum as an artist. And I think that will help and encourage people tremendously to be a part of it. And obviously, I just appreciate you guys watching along with me, Patricia. Your words mean so much. I'm so grateful for it. It's so encouraging. And I'm just very grateful for your positivity and your energy. I hope so. You know, I kind of hope it is kind of, I hate to use the word like heirloom piece, Patricia, you know, like, but I kind of hope that maybe after I'm gone, you know, many years when like my daughter is a grandmother or something, you know, if we're blessed in that fashion, that one of the kids will look at it and just be like, "Oh, grandma, that was you when you were my age, you know, great grandpa did that or something," you know, and I think that is a fun thing. So I love your comment. You know, this is a picture that will be framed and kept for generations. I sure as heck hope so. And I've talked a lot about, I think artwork, you know, has a piece of you in it. So it's a way for me to kind of live on through my daughter, through my love of art and my passion for the arts. And I've never done a piece like this. The closest thing I've ever done like this is I did a drawing of my grandfather right before he passed. And it was incredibly emotional for me. He had struggled with Alzheimer's for many, many years. And when I did this drawing of him, it was honestly a little difficult to draw because he didn't look like himself, but yet he looked he looked very much like himself. And so it was this duality because, you know, Alzheimer's is such a difficult disease, and it's very challenging, you know, seeing someone you love go through that. But at the same time, it was a true drawing that I achieved of him. So that's the only other piece that I've ever done of this magnitude as far as a connection and an emotional element. And I'm excited. I'm excited for the challenge. And so far, I think I'm doing okay. So far, I feel like I'm hanging in there. I need to work on her face. I need to work on the likeness, but I didn't want to get obsessed with that because I could probably just sit there and be obsessed with that for a long time. And I wanted to bounce around and move around. I wanted to get some other values in. I wanted to feel the piece start to come together. So I will go back and work on her face more, but I didn't want to become too obsessed with it. Reading a comment here from Patricia. Oh, that's amazing. Your grandmother's a child. That's fantastic. So yeah, I guess, I mean, you're speaking from personal experience, Patricia. You're speaking from, yes, this is something that my family has. We have something similar to this, and it is cherished. So I hope our family feels that same way about it. And I think you're probably right. You have good instincts. I think you're probably right about it. You know, it's funny. My oldest daughter is a little jealous that I'm painting her sister first. So that's kind of been a little bit of a point of contention. She's like, you know, well, what about my piece? And I'm like, honey, yeah, I have one plan for you as well. But sibling rivalry, I guess, rivalry, I suppose. And so really working these guys in. I'm excited to be able to come back in and finish this pant leg here in a little bit. I don't think I'll get to that tonight. I'm going to try to wrap up this little bit of floorboard here, this section. You know, I always say that, guys, but then I end up going a little bit longer. So I appreciate everybody jumping in, joining. If you look, we're working on the floor panels here, the wood flooring, receding back into space. I'll pan the camera out a little bit so you guys kind of see. We've got a lot of the pant leg done. We've got the feet really sculpted out, molded out. We've got the face that we're working on here. And I like to bounce around the canvas. So I've been bouncing around. You may say, oh, man, gosh, Seth, this really seems white here. We have a lot of reflected value off of this wall paneling that's going to happen because this molding is a white molding and this door and everything else is a very, very light gray. But I'm just working on some of this here, creating a unique texture that doesn't conflict with the heavy textured pant and the chiaroscuro of the feet. For those that are just joining us, this is oil paint. This is a grisaille or a grayscale painting. And I'm just kind of working through it. Maybe another 5-10 minutes. Won't be working too terribly much longer, but I appreciate all of you guys jumping in and joining us. Draw each of your three. Oh yeah, I could. Yeah, well, I've seen some of your portrait work, and I tell you that one really turned out really nice. I think the adjustments that you made. Again, you talk about doing a painting for the first time, doing a painting the second time, doing it a third or fourth time. That first one was really good, but then your second time was significantly better. I was blown away by the improvement just from doing it that second time. And again, your mind is processing different elements. Your mind is processing different components of it. And it's really neat to see that progress that your mind and your talent, your skills make by doing it more than once. And so, yeah, I forgot about that, Patricia. I apologize. Yes, I love seeing some of your portrait work, and I think some of them are turning out really, really good. And you could try, after you've done them in watercolors, you could come in and try some of that with oil. Now, I do think oil will be a little bit more challenging in a certain regard because you haven't done as much of it. But I think it would be really interesting to see how that would translate over to an oil portrait for you. Very exciting. You hear, boy, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing that one of your instructors you constantly hear in your ear. Hopefully it's positivity. Hopefully it's good stuff like, oh, Patricia, you're doing great. That's looking good. Maybe some coaching elements isn't bad either, but hopefully it's a positive, sound in your ear of me going, work on this, do that. I had a student the other day, Patricia, I think you will agree with this entirely. I had a student the other day go, Mr. Seth, you're just a giant cheerleader. And I thought that was very interesting. If you were ever one of my former students, or if you were ever one of my former players, again, having coached multiple sports, it's funny because, she said it and I kind of was taken aback. I'm like, well, I mean, I think I give good instruction, and I think hopefully I push and motivate people to try to accomplish, better skills and more, and working on their talent. But when she said it, I was like, you know what? I guess I am a pretty big cheerleader. I think I am. And honestly, I'm proud of it. I like being a cheerleader for my students because I think art sometimes is a challenge. It's hard to cheer yourself on. And I think it's important to have somebody that's encouraging and motivating and being positive with you and for you. I think I'm grateful. And again, I enjoy getting to do what I do. I enjoy working with some of the most amazing students in the area. And why would I not be a cheerleader for them? And so after I thought about it and after we finished our session, I just told her, thank you. I just said, thank you for that. That really makes me feel good. Because I like being a cheerleader. I'm proud of my students. I'm proud of what they do. And doesn't mean I don't want to see them improve. Doesn't mean I'm not going to coach them up. But I like being a good cheerleader. So now I'm okay with it. All right. I like it. So I'm losing this edge here a little bit. So I've got to kind of hone that edge in. And I think what it is I think I know what it is I got to figure out what side do I want that lip to be on. And what I mean is this area right here. There's actually two boards here, and they're kind of blending because the value is kind of hovering between those two. And so I'm just going to go in with a slightly darker medium tone, and I'm going to add in that line back in, but I'm going to add it in hopefully very softly so that it's a subtle hint, kind of like what you see down here. And I know some of this is hard to see because you're not in person, but if you were in person, you can see it's a very soft, subtle shift. And so I'm going to see if I can gain that back and just very gently add that back in on that perspective element. Not too much because it's just a hint, just a hair. And boom, there it is. I think hopefully you guys can see that right there. That's exactly what I was hoping to get. And I don't want to overwork that. I don't want to lose that. I want to leave that and let that sit because I actually got it almost exactly the way that I wanted. So I'm going to let that breathe. I'm going to finish this up here in this area. And then I'm probably going to clean my brushes for tonight. I'm probably just going to let that sit. I'll step back from the painting, see where I'm at with it, how I feel about it. But first, I don't want to leave a section unfinished. So I'm going to work on this little finish here. Finish this little bit up. It's got a little bit of wood grain on this area. Again, I'm continuing to use my brush strokes in that perspective, right? In that perspective line. So it keeps it feeling like it's receding back in space. If you haven't studied perspective, you'll hear Chad, Thomas, and myself talk very heavily about the importance of understanding and knowing perspective. And it is a huge value, whether you're a comic and cartoonist, whether you're just a watercolorist, a draftsman, or a painter. It doesn't matter what you're doing. Being able to draw in perspective and understand perspective is a huge benefit. It will make all of your work better. And I encourage every single person, whether you're just a recreational artist or a serious professional artist, really hone in and understand perspective to its fullest, because it will change the way that you produce and create artwork. And that's something that I think we don't harp on often enough, is know and understand perspective. And then the second thing there, I think, would be know and understand the anatomy. Know and understand anatomy will make your work significantly better. Patricia, thank you so much. You always give me so many wonderful compliments. I'm glad you think it's beautiful. I hope it's appealing and pleasing to the eye. We're kind of getting to a good stopping point here today, guys. I'm going to finish up maybe a couple little other touches, but as always, I'm so grateful that you guys are joining us here at the Visual Arts Academy and Studio, both in person as well as online and with our live streams. Thank you guys for encouraging and just being so supportive of what we're doing here. I hope you're painting at home. I hope you're drawing at home. Journal, write, be creative. Don't be a consumer, be a creator. And it's okay to consume content, but also create. We are called to create. We are beings of creation, and we are meant to create also. And I can't wait to see what you guys are doing at home. I can't wait for you guys to come by the Academy, show me some of your work, show everybody here some of your work. We have the gallery upstairs, just come on in and be with us and work together, guys. We're so excited, and we love being able to do this with you guys. Thank you for joining us today. I got one last thing. Absolutely, Patricia, just reach out to me. Let me know. We'll figure it out. If nothing else, just come by, and we'll just talk some art. So we've got our live drawing sessions. Just a quick reminder, live drawing sessions Thursday night, 6 to 8 p.m. upstairs in the second floor gallery and studio. We have clothed model drawing sessions and still life sessions up there for you guys. $20 drop-in fee. Come when you can. We're excited to continue to build this community, and I look forward to working with all of you soon. Patricia, reach out to me. We'll make sure we get something on the books for you. But also, too, I just can't wait to see you back in the studio soon. January can't get here soon enough, but we are looking forward to the holidays. So happy Wednesday evening, everyone. Hope you all have a great night. I look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you all.